man. The Yeti, alright, so I'm going to say it. Bigfoot is bullshit. Bigfoot, more like big shit. It's not real. Bigfoot sucks. Alright? All those people going out squatching, at the end of the day, they're just having male bonding time in the woods, sometimes shooting guns, sometimes getting scared and running around at noises in the woods, and ultimately that's probably good for them. I actually have no issue with that. But it's bullshit. Alright? It's a bunch of different hoaxes. A creature of that size would have been seen unless it was supernatural in some respect. And I'm sorry, I don't believe in the supernatural. Um, as much as like I like the idea of psychics and like invisibility and magic powers, I don't buy it. You know, could Bigfoot be a psychic warrior? Maybe. I don't think so though. The Yeti, however, I think is infinitely more compelling, right? Because you're out in the mountains, the Himalayas. Those are some big fucking mountains. And you know what's not out in the big, rare, large stretches are never trekked by people. Just completely, wild, truly wild, right? Like, yeah, you could fly a helicopter over it or something. But generally speaking, there are entire square miles of the Himalayas that probably don't see people at all over the course of a year. And, you know, in the cold, predators have a greater reason to grow to large sizes, right? We see it with like polar bears or Kodiak bears, or you know, just like the if it's cold, it makes more sense for your body, for the heat that you lose, for a larger body plan. All right. If you were to tell me that, hey, there's a big, like a Bigfoot running around in the desert, right? It wouldn't make sense. In the forests, it makes a little more sense, but like in the lower 48 states, you're not going to even see a grizzly in most of those, let alone a larger, intelligent, man-size or larger humanoid. However, out in the Himalayas, where there's nobody, something like that could totally exist, right? There are already primates in surrounding regions. No, we're snoozing the ad again. I'm not done talking about the Yeti. There's already primates in the surrounding regions, and they're already large ground predators. Uh, was it the Swiss Alps, I want to say? We thought that the blue bear had gone utterly extinct because no one had seen it in like 80 fucking years. And then someone just saw it because guess what? You're sometimes not going to see things when they live in the mountains because they're in the fucking mountains where they want to be left alone. For the record, the blue bear is just like a different type of the black bear. Its coat is just a little bit different, but it's regionally different enough that it's a thing that people could differentiate versus your standard black bear. It's a whole thing. In any case, big creatures live out there. Things just disappear out there. Primates exist up there. And I don't know, there's an entire like cultural like history and belief of these large primates being out in the mountains, which on its own isn't super valuable. In fact, any of these things on their own aren't valuable, but combined together, now we have the makings of something believable. Yeah, but we don't actually have like any primates that exist up here, right? And also, it turns out that a lot of those Bigfoot, you know, Native Americans said this or saw that. Turns out a lot of that was just a couple of guys like claiming that they said this. A lot of the examples of, if you actually like follow them back to what was actually said, if it was even a genuine quote or account in the first place, they vary pretty wildly from what we describe as Bigfoot. Like, yes, big nature spirit type man guy, but when it starts to become like, hey, he's fully haired, or you get into any descriptors at all about him or what he does, it varies pretty wildly versus what we would describe. So those cases are, on their own, I don't consider super compelling. But again, like I said, that on its own, even in the Himalayas, not as compelling. But we actually do have primates that exist out in that part of the world. And as far as like the environment goes, it makes more sense to have a large primate out there anyway, versus out here in like the temperate forests and the deserts and shit. No, it just maybe a small primate, but like a big one, ecologically it makes less sense. In any case, am I saying that the Bigfoot is 100% fake? Yes. Am I saying that the Yeti is 100% for real true? No. I just think that if we were to take a look at every cryptid out there, that I think the Yeti is infinitely more likely to exist than any of the other cryptids out there. Like, do I want to meet Mothman? And do I want to slap his juicy ass? Yeah. But do I think Mothman exists? No. Or the Jersey Devil? Nah. They're cool, but I think that the Yeti is the most compelling. Yeah. Greenheart says, according to Hal Comelin and other coast sailors' traditions, Sasquatch was a powerful but generally benign supernatural creature in the shape of a very large hairy man. Like I said, even just having like folklore on its own, like that's only one small piece, and on its own I don't find that compelling. But when combined with the other factors, way more makes sense. Cosmic Apocalypse says, Mothman is real, and we made out in a Denny's parking lot. Lucky. I'll never get to slap Mothman's juicy ass. Nessie? Bullshit. Why would Nessie exist? Nessie doesn't make any sense. Really, there's a strange dinosaur fellow, and he just kind of hangs out in one Irish lake. Are there many of them? Do they have a way out to the ocean? If they had a way out to the ocean, why don't we see them out in the ocean? Why is there just one? It's lame. Most of your lake monsters here in the States, and I know a few of them. Bullshit. Doesn't make sense. But if I was a betting man and you said, hey, Dendy, pick one of these motherfuckers to be real, and if you're right, I won't kill you. My bet and my life is laid gently in the Yeti's capable hands.